King Yella just called out VonOff17 and Bloodhound Lil Jeff, saying these two rappers ruined his son's life.
You said that Bloodhound Lil Jeff and VonOff17 ruined your son's life.
He did.
His straight A kid copied their look, changed his name, and ended up locked in Vegas. But that's only part of the story, 'cause the truth goes deeper than that. Let's break it down. How it all went down. Let me run it down plain, because the timeline is the whole story right here. King Yella's oldest son came up on the south side of Chicago, out in Old Block and later the Gardens. So he'd been around gangs since he was a shorty. Them blocks carry black disciple weight, and that matters later because Yella himself is a gangster disciple, a whole other set. For a minute the youngin stayed in St. Louis with his grandma. Then he slid back to Chicago with his mama. This whole time he kept ringing his pops, and Yella was going through his own thing, so the boy was bouncing crib to crib. Then he came back to stay with Yella for good.
So he come back like my birthday last year.
Yella put a hard date on it.
Yeah, my birthday, February 25th, came back like the 25th, on my birthday, 2025.
So the youngin moved back in with Yella around his birthday on February 25th of 2025, and right away Yella peeped something was off. The boy pulled up looking like a whole different person.
He come back with the long Rick Owens on, tight ass Mary's on, with the dreads.
And the ink on his hand is what set it off.
Got a tat on his hand, the skeleton, the what's name on the bones on it.
If you follow the scene at all, you already know that is Bloodhound Lil Jeff's whole aesthetic. So Yella came home to a son in tight Rick Owens, the shoes they call Mary's, dreads, and a skeleton bone tat on his hand. Then the boy started answering to blood names. He called himself Bloody Little Spaz, and he started running with a lil crew out the Gardens repping that same thing. Yella says the youngin was already bumping these rappers before the whole switch up. At first, he wasn't even tripping. The music by itself didn't move him. It was when the diss tracks and the beef talk got loud that he started to worry, because now the boy wasn't just a fan no more. He was moving like the songs. The interviewer put the claim straight to his face, and Yella didn't back off it one bit.
You said that Bloodhound Lil Jeff and VonOff17 ruined your son's life.
Yella ain't blink. He owned it and even made it bigger.
He did. Probably ruined a lot of people's kids' life.
From there, the slide was fast. Yella had the boy on online school, which handed him way too much free time while Yella was out the crib running around. There was already a quiet juvenile case a year before for boosting cars, kept on the low at the time. Then the boy turned 18.
He turned 18 in December, got kicked out of school.
So he got put out of school behind a weed pen situation after turning 18 that December, and the case got dropped the next day. At the same time, Yella caught a 7-day notice to get up out his own spot. He had blown his money, got evicted, and slid in with his lil brother to regroup. The youngin rode right along with him. By now, the son was in and out the crib on his own clock, out in the trenches doing stuff Yella couldn't track. The same way Yella says his own pops never knew what he was into as a kid. The last regular thing Yella saw was his boy at the crib on the sticks.
The last thing I know, he was in the house playing GTA on the game.
Then the call came.
I don't even know how he ended up in jail. And that's, I get a call. He ended up for string of robberies.
And the number on that bond was heavy.
Bond? 200K? 50,000 a walk? Man, I ain't even got $50 right now.
So the son is sitting in Las Vegas on a string of robbery charges with a $200,000 bond and $50,000 to walk. And Yella says he don't even got $50 to his name. That is the whole thing in a straight line. On a roll in the winter, string of robberies by the summer.
These months from January to July, the nigga just spiraled down and all this has happened to me.
That is the frame. Now let me break down every piece, starting with the two rappers. The blood makeover. This right here is where Yella's anger lives, so let me sit in it with y'all. Picture a pops who left Chicago on purpose, who dragged his youngin all the way out to the desert just to keep him off the same path he came up on. He moved to Las Vegas to give the boy new air, new blocks, a clean start with none of the old faces in his ear. In his mind, that distance was the whole play. Get the kid off the block away from the funerals, and let that honor roll brain do the rest. Now picture that same pops opening his front door and seeing a walking billboard for the exact thing he ran from. That is what Yella says hit him dead in the chest. His son, tall and light-skinned, standing there dripped head to toe like the hottest drill rapper on the internet.
Like my son, light-skinned, tall, just like this.
The dreads, the tight fit, them bones inked in his hand. Yella says his eyes did the math before his brain could even catch up.
With the tat on his hand, with the dreads, All I saw was bloodhound Lil Jeff.
That line hit hard because it ain't really about clothes. It is a father watching his son throw on a costume soaked in a rival meaning, wearing another man's whole identity like a second skin. And it didn't stop at the fit. The boy traded his own name for a borrowed one dipped in that same blood theme.
Then he changed his name to first bloody little spaz.
And the youngin' was proud of it, saying it right to his face.
Pop, we bloodbath. They is bloodbath in the gardens.
So now the honor roll kid is answering to a blood alias and repping a lil crew out the gardens. And Yella is standing in his own living room, feeling like a stranger raised his son through a phone screen. Think about how backwards that is for him. Yella is a lifelong gangster disciple, a man who knows every corner of this street world, and his own seed walked in flying the other side's colors, proud as ever. In his world, that is like a blue watching his kids stroll in draped in red, chanting the op slogans. That ain't no fashion clash. That is a betrayal wearing his son's face. He points the finger at two names when he explains it, and he says it more than once. In a separate breakdown, he named the source with zero softness.
Bloodhound Lil Jeff came out and f***ed my son up, man.
And he don't stop at his own kid. He believes the damage went wide.
That really f***ed my son up. All these kids are.
To Yella, the raw drill content from these artists worked like poison on kids already living in the trenches, flipping street beef and gang loyalty into something a smart teenager would want to cosplay. He describes it almost like a virus running through the culture, jumping from a song to a look to a name to a whole new way of walking. A kid hears the anthem, cops the fit, gets the tat, and before anybody peeps it, the music done redesigned him from the inside out.
You think you is Bloodhound Lil Jeff? VonOff17, all these little man.
That is the heart of the whole accusation. Yella's argument ain't complicated, and honestly, it is the same one a lot of tired parents make. He says these were the hottest young rappers in the scene, so every impressionable youngin' looking for a lane latched right on. His kid was already in the headphones before the switch up ever showed up on his skin.
I'm like, bro, you don't even know, like my kids, these look up to y'all.
To him, that is the danger nobody in the booth thinks about. Real kids treating these artists like the whole blueprint.
My kids looking up to these little, they the hottest little rappers that's coming out.
That is the whole point. And once the look changed, he says, the boy was never the same person again. That sets up the next piece, which is the fall itself. From honor roll to a cell. Now let me show y'all what actually got lost, because that is what makes this one sting. This wasn't no lost cause kid. This is the part that separates his story from 1,000 other trap tales. By his own pops telling, this was a sharp, gifted youngin' who was basically at the finish line. Not a kid drowning in F's and detention, praying for a way out. A kid who was already winning the game the safe way, on paper, with grades and a clean file. That is what makes this a real tragedy instead of just another cautionary tale. You ain't watching a hopeless kid stay hopeless. You watching a winner throw the whole thing away in slow motion. Yella lights up when he talks about who his son used to be, and you can hear the pride wrestling with the pain.
Now my son's smart. The nigga ain't been suspended or nothing until senior year.
And it wasn't just staying out of trouble. The boy was a top student.
Never, honor roll student.
Sit with that, an honor roll student with a clean record, no suspensions until his senior year. A kid who had every reason to make it out clean. And the coldest part, the detail Yella keeps circling back to like a bruise he can't stop pressing, is how close the boy was to the door.
So I feel like I let my son down when only needed 2 credits to graduate high school.
2 credits, a summer of easy work stood between this youngin' and a diploma, and instead the streets swallowed him whole. But the warning lights had been blinking for a minute. There was a quiet juvenile case nobody was talking about.
He did like a money juvenile, stealing cars and shit like that.
So there was already a hush juvenile case for boosting cars before any of the grown man trouble hit. A crack in the glass Yella tried to keep on the low because it wasn't the world's business. Then online school handed the boy a schedule with no walls, no bell, no hallway, no teacher watching the clock, just a laptop and a whole city full of free time. Yella now admits that setup was a mistake, that it gave a teenager way too much room to roam while his pops was out the crib chasing the bag just to keep the lights on. So the boy was running in and out on his own clock, sinking deeper into whatever the trenches was offering, moving like a youngin' who already stopped answering to anybody. And when the arrest finally hit, it came out of nowhere, like a trapdoor opening under a kid who was on the sticks an hour earlier. Wasn't no slow buildup. Yella could see no big fight, no warning. One day the boy on the couch with a controller. Next day he a phone call about robberies. Yella still can't square the son he knew with the charges on that paper.
My son, he's 18. My son locked up? Huh? Robberies? What? I ain't never saw my son do nothing like that.
That is a man in shock. He says he never once saw his son move like this, which is exactly why them robbery charges knocked the wind out of him. In another sit down, he laid the contrast out flat, the clean record against the sudden felony weight.
He 18. He ain't been in no trouble, honor roll student, been doing good his whole life, man.
And here's the twist that tells you what kind of father Yella trying to become. Even sitting there broke, even with his boy staring down real time, he says he wouldn't rush to bond him out. He talked about letting the son learn from his own mistakes instead of paying his way free, which is a cold call for any parent, but one he frames as love with teeth. The math is simple and it is heavy. A gifted kid, 2 credits short, now facing a string of robberies and a bond his pops can't touch. Think about how thin that margin was. 2 classes, a few weeks of work. That is all that stood between a cap and gown and a jail intake photo, and the streets closed that gap in one call. That is the fall. But Yella will be the first to tell you them rappers wasn't the only ones in the room when it happened, because he was slipping too. That is the next piece. The father was drowning too. This is the part Yella ain't have to say out loud, and it is the part that makes him human. A weaker man would have stopped at blaming the rappers. That is the easy exit point. At VonOff17, point at Bloodhound Lil Jeff. Wash your hands and let the internet nod along. But Yella keeps turning the camera back on himself, and what he shows is a pops who was falling apart at the exact same moment his son needed a rock to stand on. While the boy was sliding into the trenches, King Yella was busy losing himself in real time, and he knows the boy watched every second of it. The way he tells it, the money ran out first, and everything else followed like dominoes. It started with a housing deal that turned into a robbery in slow motion.
I paid the lady for a crib. She ran off with my money. That was like $7,000, $8,000. Ran off on me.
So a woman took several thousand off him for a place to stay and vanished. And that hit put him on tilt. Instead of regrouping, he chased the loss the worst way a man can chase it. He took what little he had left to the casino floor and watched it burn.
Go to the casino, get cracked. Damn, I'm trying to, let me make a flip. Lose everything. Now, flat.
That wasn't no one-time slip. That was a whole spiral, and Yella owns the ugly shape of it. He points to the drinking, the drugs, and the gambling as the machine that ground him down to nothing. And he is blunt about the wreckage in the crib too. The woman he loved walked out, and the home went cold.
And I done lost everything. I done went broke.
Then he lists the wreckage one piece at a time, like a man reading his own crash report.
Mama lean gone. I got kicked out my crib, gambled the money, couldn't pay rent.
So while he was trying to save his son, he was broke, evicted, his girl was gone, and he admits addiction and gambling drove the whole collapse. His whips was gone. One got repoed, one got crashed, and he was out here calling folks for rides after years of pulling up in his own ride. The home life went dead silent too. He describes living with the woman he loved like 2 cellies sharing a bunk. No good mornings, no affection, just 2 people existing in the same space while everything crumbled around them. And the man who once flashed real bread in Las Vegas, who blew it on cars and clothes and jewelry trying to look the part, couldn't scrape together bond for his own child. He connects the 2 things without flinching. The boy wasn't just influenced by rappers on a screen. The boy was also studying his own pops come apart, watching the strongest man in his life get small right in front of him.
I'm just feeling like, what's going on with my life? He just seen his pop struggling, going through it.
That is the quiet horror of it. A youngin' learns what a man is by watching one. And this youngin' watched his pops sink. Yella don't dodge it. He admits he was numbing himself out and losing the plot.
But beating my body down, around here sedated, around here loaded.
He puts one word on the whole slide and he don't dress it up.
And in the midst of all this being King Yella, bro, I done had crazy addictions.
And through all of it, one sentence keeps falling out his mouth like a stone he can't put down.
I feel like I failed my boy, man.
That is not a man blaming 2 rappers to duck the mirror. That is a man staring dead into it. He compares himself to famous folks who made fortunes and lost it all. But he says the pain hit different when you go broke with kids depending on you. That is a man saying the rappers was pulling from one side while he was too buried to pull back from the other. He has since gotten baptized and spoken about getting sober and trying to rebuild, calling the whole low point a reckoning he had to face for himself and for his kids. So the blame is real, but it is shared, which brings us to the last question. Why does a lifelong street dude land on rap itself as the villain? For that, you gotta look at Yella's own life. That is the final piece. The cycle he is trying to break. To understand why Yella points at rap so hard, you gotta understand he ain't judging this world from the outside. He is judging it from the deepest inside there is. King Yella, real name Simone Lewis, ain't choose his set. He says he was born into it, handed the gangster disciples the same way another kid gets handed a last name.
Trust me, I'm born, GD.
Yeah.
My daddy, GD.
He talks about studying the old literature as a shorty, treating it like a rule book for survival.
Love, life, loyalty, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, determination, dedication, discipline.
So he came up as a born GD out the skis world set, learning the literature instead of getting jumped in. From there, he became one of the rawest voices of early Chicago drill, running in the same circles as figures like FBG Duck as the sound was blowing up on the internet. He has buried homies from that world and cried over them.
I cried like a baby.
This is a man who watched the drill life eat everybody around him. He watched King Von rise and fall. He watched close homies leave for Chicago and never come back breathing. He carries that survivor guilt of a dude who left when others stayed. So when Yella talks about this world, he ain't guessing. He is testifying from inside the storm. He done real time too. He caught a case that put him in a cage and nearly cost him his life in the streets before that.
Aggravated assault on the police with a firearm.
He says a shooting nearly took his head clean off years before that.
Went through my hair, like this whole side was like gone.
So he did prison time on an assault case tied to a police firearm situation and survived getting shot at back in the day, on top of a later federal bid. He has even carried the ugliest label the streets can hang on a man, the rat tag, after 1090 Jake dropped paperwork claiming he named Lil Durk, Offset, and 600 Breezy, which he flatly denies.
I ain't named shit. The police named him.
His whole defense is that he was the only one who paid for it.
I'm the one just went to the feds. Ain't nobody go to jail but me. I was gone 4 years.
He has even been the punchline himself from a viral moment where he drank a full bottle of Crown Royal and passed out during a Cam Capone news interview. So when Yella says rap ruined his son, this is a man who lived the whole movie and knows exactly how it ends. And that is why his verdict is bigger than two rappers. He thinks the whole lane is a trap. Listen to what he tells kids to chase instead.
I want to be LeBron. I want to be Steph.
Then he tells you flat out how he ranks the rap dream against everything else.
Not knowing this is the weakest link. The rap, that shit weak.
There it is, the real answer. Yella ain't only blaming VonOff1700 and Bloodhound Lil Jeff. He is blaming a whole culture that sells drill dreams to black kids as a way out, when he sees it as one of the weakest bets a youngin' can make. So who you really think ruined this kid's life? The rappers he copied, the pops who was drowning right next to him, or the streets that was always gonna be waiting? Drop your honest take in the comments and tap in for the next one, because this story is far from over.